Seldomly people nowadays in the busy world create that room and space, just to sit back and to ponder and to self-reflect. And if I just want to do one thing, which obviously in reality, we won't just do that one thing, but if we have to pick one, what is our superpower?
You are listening to The Sure Shot Entrepreneur, a podcast for founders with ambitious ideas. Venture capital investors and other early believers tell you relatable, insightful, and authentic stories to help you realize your vision. Welcome to The Sure Shot Entrepreneur. My guest today is Jessie Guo. She's an investment partner at Next Legacy Partners. Next Legacy Partners has been around for many years. In its current incarnation, it's called Next Legacy Partners. Prior to that, Jessie was at Audacious Ventures. She was a partner there. We're going to talk to her about her journey, starting with how she grew up in a small town in northern China and how she made her way to the San Francisco Bay Area and why she is excited about being an LP in Silicon Valley. Jessie, welcome to the Sure Shot Entrepreneur.
Thank you so much, Gopi. I'm so excited to be here and have a fun conversation.
I have a lot of questions. There are a lot of things happening in the market, especially in the past 5 to 10 years, especially from the perspective as an LP. A lot of things changing on the VC side, how you are adapting your game. But before we go into all of that, I want to start with you. You grew up in China, in a small town in northern China, and then you slowly made your way to where you are today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Gopi. So, as you mentioned, I was born and raised in China. So my hometown is a very small county in the northern part of China. Nobody have really heard about this name. And I will assure you that probably 90% of the people cannot pronounce my hometown's name, Dingxiang. It's really fun. Growing up, I can literally bike around the whole downtown of the entire county in about 15 to 20 minutes. We have one primary school, one middle school, one high school where my parents worked. But because of that context, all I wanted to do as a kid was to go out of my hometown and see what's the world out there. Maybe go to a bigger place where, I cannot bike around the downtown in 20 minutes. So I actually left my hometown when I was 13 years old to attend a high school in the capital city of our province. And from there, I went to Beijing for university, worked in Beijing, and started my career in the technology industry and caught the LP bug while working with the VC fund and wanted to continue to build my LP career when I moved to the US 12 years ago and found my current team 10 years ago. And here I am. Just celebrated my 10-year anniversary last week with our team.
Congratulations. So what an amazing journey. The venture ecosystem and the LPC ecosystem has also evolved. There was a time when you could bike around in 20 minutes, you could meet all your portfolio firms and companies. But now that's not the case anymore. There are hundreds more, thousands more VCs in the market. I'm curious to hear your perspective compared to 10 years ago when you started in the industry. How have things changed? What is different now?
Yeah, obviously, so many things have changed. I will just highlight a couple of my observations. And for one, I feel as you alluded to already, the ecosystem of venture industry has expanded so much. Just in the past decade, it's already expanded so much. And I am very delighted to see that particularly the ecosystem of emerging managers really emerged and grown in the past decade. And we are seeing a lot of very promising and active players that are joining the industry, making the impact to the entrepreneurs at the very early stage and leveraging their domain expertise, right, to help the hero's journey of the entrepreneurs. I'm really delighted to see that. And another observation I would highlight is also feels like, given the waves of innovation, I'm very excited to continue to see all the talent innovation. They just come regardless of the cycle of the where we are, right? Obviously, we are still in a relatively challenging macro environment and for the industry, but you probably can already tell I'm a more optimistic personality. And I think innovation is cycle agnostic, and that's where actually has been really the case, not only in the past decade, but much longer time, which really excites me every day.
Now, you already touched on a couple of things why you like your job, but what about the venture ecosystem do you like the most? Why do you enjoy being an LP?
I thought about this like all the time, particularly when I first moved to the US from China. And at the early stage of my career, thinking about where I want to develop my career trajectory. And a couple of things really resonate with me. One, like we actually just, our team went through like the strength finder experiment for our team. And one of my top one is a learner is my top one. So I just feel like, as we are taking a generalist approach as an LP here, I'm learning all the time. It really excites me. And another really resonated me is actually one of the top 5 values at Next Legacy. The first one is relationships over transactions. I think in our industry, we are in the position to be able to build that relationship, right? That authentic conversation, like what we are doing right now. It's like on top of the learning with all the great innovations and from all the smart minds, we also build that relationships over the time through those conversations, which really excites me as LP, talking with all the GPs, the other LPs, founders that we may cross paths with. So those are just like top 2 that immediately jump to my mind: the learning and relationships.
This business is all about relationships, and there is so much new stuff happening. It gets more and more difficult to keep pace with this, but you have to have that deep desire to learn. It's
Yeah.
great that you highlighted the two of them as your most important characteristics that you really enjoy. I want to ask you about some of your investments. What gets you excited? When do you say, this is a firm I want to invest in? This is an emerging manager I want to back, or this is an established manager I'd like to get behind. What goes on in your mind when you say, yes, I really like this general partner?
Yeah. So one of the recent commitment we've made at Next Legacy is Audacious Ventures. Nako Mandan is the founding GP of the firm. We initially connected with him through actually our GP network. He worked at Lightspeed, and our teams have already been familiar with him. But a couple of things really helped us to build a high conviction in what he's building at Audacious Ventures. One, if you have met Nako or have heard of his story, that's a very inspiring immigrant story where he immigrated to the US from India and built his career in the venture industry over the time here in the US. And just that tenacity, that drive, that willingness to do all the hustle, the hard work, and you can tell and you can see from how his personal journey has been. And actually, a couple of weeks ago, I just celebrated for him to become a US citizen, and after all these years, I'm very, very happy for him. So that speaks a lot to GP, not just to say, oh, this is a firm, they are doing the seed investment, like, they are building this portfolio, they are focusing on enterprise. We also due diligence and do analysis on all that, but back to that relationships over transactions, and back to that understanding the human being, right? So that was a very important element when we were trying to understand better of his vision, his journey, and really help us to build that conviction on the team. Another thing that I think is really a highlight for us is like really do what you said you are going to do, right? Execute on your vision, your plan. And he has exactly been doing what his original vision has been, building a firm where each partner have their domain expertise in sourcing, in picking the deal, in access the deal, in helping the portfolio company. And he since then, brought MZ and Sam into the team, and the team has also been expanding. We actually talked with him during the pandemic, when he initially was thinking about launching Fund One, and for all kinds of our portfolio construction reason, we wasn't able to jump on the train with him for Fund One, but because of that deep conversation at very inception time, and I and our team have been in touch with him and giving feedback and being a thought partnership along the way while he was building Fund One. I think we were one of the earliest LP to commit in his Fund Two this time around. So very much excited about his team and Audacious Ventures.
Investing in a VC firm, backing a fund early is quite hard. And it's much harder to do it at Fund 1, Fund 2, and Fund 3 when the emerging manager still hasn't fully evolved to show a solid track record. So kudos to you for backing the vision of the founder at the firm. The firm is different in many ways. One of the things they follow is they separate out the functions of deal flow, evaluation, and value add, which is usually combined with every partner. Each partner usually is responsible for sourcing and doing their own due diligence, leading that effort, and also supporting the portfolio companies. So that kind of becomes 3 jobs into one person, which is the standard that most VCs follow. But Nakul and his team follow a very different approach.
Yeah.
And that is a different strategy. How did you get comfortable with it, and what's exciting about it for you?
Yeah. On that front, maybe on a high level, I think that for our industry, there are multiple ways and approaches that enable a great venture firm, right? Like as you mentioned, this is a different approach. There's other approach, but there are successful examples and firms in each one of the bucket of the approach they are building the firm. So that drills down to the question on what is the optimal or ideal approach that suits the best to this specific team or the firm, right? So in this case, like what really help us to get comfortable and build actually, we think this as a differentiation for Audacious is how deeply thoughtful Nako and his partners in terms of leveraging their superpower. We all have our own superpower, and I feel like a lot of times people are trying to do a lot of things simultaneously and strive for the excellence in many domains altogether. But seldomly people nowadays in the busy world create that room and space, just to sit back and to ponder and to self-reflect. And if I just want to do one thing, which obviously in reality, we won't just do that one thing, but if we have to pick one, what is our superpower? And I think Nako really thought through that. And he was also very helpful to articulate how each one of them would leverage their superpower in those domains to help their entrepreneur. Of course, in the daily work, they all collaborate. It's not that clear cut to say, hey, you just do this, you just do that. But to the extent they can, really amplify the superpower is where we think differentiate them.
It's great to see that you have an open mind to listen to new strategies. Often VCs walk in with a story that their superpower is in one of the 3 areas. And here we have Audacious Ventures, which has the opportunity to be excellent at all 3 of them because there's one person responsible for each of those functions. It's great to see that you had an open mind to embrace that concept. Let's talk about Next Legacy Ventures. Can you describe the firm? What kind of investments do you like to focus on? And also talk about the merger of the 2 firms. How did that come together, and what does the future look like for the firm?
Yeah, happy to share. So my firm, Next Legacy Partners, we invest on behalf of a mission-driven community of philanthropists and athletes and cultural leaders to invest in early stage venture. So I will get to the background story of where that community of philanthropists and athletes coming together. And before that, just like continue on what we do currently. And so we are venture-only investment firm, right? And we invest in both funds and startups. So on the fund side, we invest in both established managers and emerging managers. And early stage focus strategy, technology focus, and generalist approach within technology. You mentioned earlier that our firm has been around for now 25 years, and so we have a existing portfolio of relatively concentrated portfolio on both established and emerging manager side. And on the direct investing side, we co-invest with our GPs from both group of established and emerging managers, and we typically invest somewhere one step later than our early stage focused managers, or somewhere late Series A, Series B ish is the direct focus. So that's kind of a nutshell of what Next Legacy Partners does. The background story of how Next Legacy was born is dear to my heart. So we actually just announced our new name, Next Legacy, last May. So it's been 1.5 years. And prior to that, the two precedent firms, Legacy Venture, where I joined 10 years ago, started in 1999 representing the community of philanthropists. They could be philanthropic individuals or families or nonprofit organizations. And we actually, for our philanthropic capital, donate 100% of the distributions from our flagship vehicle to whatever charitable causes our investors choose. So we choose where to invest, they choose where to donate. We really want to leverage the venture return to amplify their philanthropic efforts. And then the other prior firm, Next Play Capital, founded a decade ago by my partner Ryan Nees, is really helping the community of athletes to create a table for them in the venture industry and invest in the venture on behalf of this diverse and mission-driven community. Obviously, the two prior teams have been knowing each other for quite a long time and collaborating. So we kind of discussed some other way of deeper collaboration in maybe emerging manager portfolio at the beginning. And I realized, what? There's synergy in our team. There's great value align in the community. There's already a lot of synergy we can realize in the portfolio side and, all that. So eventually we decided to combine together, and here we are, and looking forward to next decade and decades for our combined one team, one firm as Next Legacy.
I can see the natural amalgamation of the two firms coming together with values and the organization's culture all merging together seamlessly. I've known Russ Hall, the co-founder of Legacy Partners, for many years, more than a decade. He's a font of wisdom. I've learned a lot from him over the years. Every time I meet him for lunch, he shares stories that are truly inspiring. It's great to see that the two firms have come together and you're looking at the next few decades ahead of you.
Yeah, a fun fact, like Russ literally was the reason I joined our team 10 years ago. Because I came to the US after left my job in Beijing, became an international MBA student here in the US. And Russ was kind enough to respond my cold email, reach out to him like 10 plus years ago. And that's the only reason that I was lucky enough to be able to join our team because, he just really kind and nice to a totally stranger and opened a position for a young Jessie a decade ago. So I'm very grateful.
Can we talk about some guidelines and parameters of what is a good fit for Next Legacy Partners? What fund stage is a good fit for you? I'm focusing a lot on the fund side, but I understand that you also do direct investments in companies. The fund side is a more difficult space to understand. So if you don't mind, we can focus on that.
Yeah.
Is it fund one, fund two, fund three, or more established firms? Do you have preference for a percentage of the fund that you'd like to be a part of? Are there some guidelines on bottom limits and top limits? And how often do you add a new fund to your portfolio?
Yeah, all great questions. I will talk first on the emerging manager portfolio side. For our emerging manager portfolio, on the portfolio construction perspective, like we are building a relatively concentrated portfolio of somewhere between 10 to 15 core relationships in our emerging leaders fund. And we can write 1 to 5 million checks as the initial start with the underlying managers. How we are defining the emerging managers into our portfolio, we focus on US managers that are in their first 3 institutional funds. So fund 1s, 2s, 3s, sometimes fund 4s. They all are early stage focused managers. Compared to our established manager portfolio, they probably, have a one step earlier by stage, right? Thinking about our emerging manager cohort, the underlying entry stage somewhere ranging from pre-seed to A-ish. And I mentioned earlier that, we are taking a generalist approach within the technology space. Given the team background and capacity, we don't proactively invest in, say, traditional life science or healthcare. That is not our focus or sweet spot. But within tech, we have enterprise-focused managers. Consumer, deep tech is a variety of managers in the portfolio, which, as I mentioned earlier, we want to actually rely on our managers to apply their superpower in whatever domains they are the best at. And then on the established managers, those are, fund 4 or 5 beyond. And typically we have a longer history of relationship, or they have a longer history for their firm. And that is still early stage focus for us. But thinking about probably the majority of the entry stage, Series A, and ranging from seed A to B-ish. And there we think about somewhere 20 to 25 core relationships plus a few discovery relationships.
It's great to see that you have a broad array of topics you can cover, more established firms and later stage firms, and all the way up to the earliest stage firms. Why is choosing a manager difficult? Why is it a hard job?
Yeah. For one, when we talked about the evolvement of the venture ecosystem at the beginning of our conversation, like we discussed about the expansion of the ecosystem, right? If I just look at the funnel 10 years ago versus like now, just that alone has been expanded so much. So actually we just hosted our own annual meeting like 3 weeks ago. And I was looking back of our deal funnel, and we kind of looked at over 500 of funds in the past 15 months. But we only will be able to, invest in 10 to 15 emerging managers in the portfolio, 20-ish core managers in the established managers. And not all of those are new managers, right? Some of them are new relationships we added. Some of them are existing relationships that we continue to support. So just purely looking at the funnel filter is already making the job hard. But I think what's more important that your question is like how LP can build the conviction of the manager, given that nowadays the information is very readily available. The deal sourcing is not as proprietary or as, a decade ago or before. And how a manager can differentiate themselves and to help the LPs to build conviction. And as LP, how can we absorb all that information and taking all that conversations that we are having with the GPs, build that high conviction differentiation of the manager. That to me is the fun part. of being an LP, but also the most difficult thing, particularly on the emerging manager side, right? As you alluded earlier, it's like oftentimes there's no track record, no institutional track record or short history there. And it's also different between being a good investor versus being a great VC firm, a founding GP, right? For many of the spin outs opportunity. So we spend a lot of time in those areas of trying to figure out the differentiation, but it's so hard. Everybody like have their strengths, and in every conversation I have, I always learn from the GP I'm talking to, and they always have their own angle and passionate areas. But how can we, based on that, and pick that a dozen managers there? That's the most difficult, but also fun part of being an LP.
No, I empathize with LPs. About 15 years ago, when startups became so successful and entrepreneurship became a career choice that people actively chose, there were many, many, many startups. Used to be hundreds of startups, became thousands of startups. And the VCs at that time were inundated with demand and they couldn't manage. But over time, blogs and various other types of content have evolved to get to a point where founders can learn from VCs and get to know the VCs, and the number of VCs has also exploded. That's similar type of trend is happening now between the VCs and the LPs. There are thousands of VCs now in the market, but not enough LPs. The LP community has not significantly changed, although there are new types of LPs entering the market. So I empathize with limited partners like you because you're inundated with a lot of requests from VCs and you can't possibly take meetings with all of them. It's hard. What's one thing you would like to change about the venture ecosystem? As you're looking at Next Legacy's partners' role in the ecosystem, a lot of things have gotten better, but there are still many more things that could improve in the venture ecosystem. What's one thing you would like to change?
Yeah. One is I think we need more diversity in our ecosystem. I'm delighted to see some great progress over the past few years in our industry, but that's still really far from enough, right? So I think that's the immediate first thing jump to my mind. Like actually one of the important element we launched our dedicated emerging manager fund and portfolio is where we want to build a portfolio of diverse managers. The second value of our firm is excellence through diverse thinking, right? We firmly believe in that. And I think that will also really from the investing perspective, that we believe in that. And second one is like better discipline. I think a lot of times it's harder to really keep that discipline as there's opportunity of expand the fund size. There's opportunity to maybe get access to this seemingly very promising startup that a little bit off my strategy. And I would welcome and encourage to see more and better discipline from our ecosystem. Really stay true to what they are really best suited and stay true to their strategy. Not saying that people should not evolve. We should be flexible and evolve and always constantly reevaluate.
Both very valid points, diversity and discipline. We're coming towards the end of our conversation, and I want to ask you about your community involvement. Is there a nonprofit organization you are passionate about? Which one?
Great question. Our flagship vehicle, all distributions from that vehicle goes to charitable causes that our investors are passionate about. So my small GP commitment also, goes to my donor advised fund and goes to the causes I'm passionate about. So one that I support actually is very relevant to what we do is Venture Forward, that the NVCA has been spearheading the effort and supporting the emerging managers and diverse managers. Another one dear to my personal connection is the Alzheimer Foundation of America. And both my and my husband's family had a couple Alzheimer family members, and that's deeply dear in my heart to be able to support that research and solving that disease.
Jessie, thank you very much for spending time with me today and sharing candid thoughts about your perspectives on the venture ecosystem. It's very hard to get an LP to come up and share openly their ideas and what they are excited about and what they are afraid about, what changes they don't like to see, and their vision for what changes they would like to contribute to in the ecosystem. I'm so delighted that we had this conversation and you're able to share your thoughts openly. I look forward to sharing your nuggets of wisdom with the world.
Thank you so much, Gopi. And it's really a pleasure to be having this conversation with you.
Thank you for listening to The Sure Shot Entrepreneur. I hope you enjoyed listening to real-life stories about early believers supporting ambitious entrepreneurs. Please subscribe to the podcast and post a review. Your comments will help other entrepreneurs find this podcast. I look forward to catching you at the next episode.